My name's David Hicks. I don't know if my name is on the literature, it doesn't matter. It's not about me having solutions for you. To tell you a little bit about myself, I'm a principal, but I'm also a mathematician. My passion is mathematics, so I have the opportunity today to hopefully drive some of the ideas we have, but also encourage you with your ideas. I'm very much aware. In the room we'll have different levels of awareness about the national agenda and the key aspects we're focusing on. The national agenda, of course, is wider than what we'll be discussing today. And we will have different personalities and people with different responsibilities within the room. So that's really where I want to start, just to get a feeling for the audience. So firstly, maths teachers. Maths teachers here, are they predominantly classroom teachers? Okay. Heads of department or subject coordinators for maths? Wider curriculum responsibility? Are any of those also maths teachers? So are you dual roles? Okay. And then any heads of school? Okay, so we do have a mixed audience, and therefore the awareness and the, I suppose, the focus of the discussions later might vary. The end goal, as I said in the preamble, is not about me telling you what to do. Firstly, I'm far too humble, but secondly, I don't have the answers. It's really about putting people in touch with one another and sharing ideas now, because there is a long-term focus, but also an immediate need that we need to address. So I'll start with a presentation that I gave in the initial What Works back in September. Some of you may have seen this if you were present. I'll go through it very quickly because that's not what today is about. That was more of a strategic presentation. Today I'd like to get into the classroom nuts and bolts, if you like. So I won't be moving much away from here initially, so that we can get through very quickly. So excuse me. So, in brief, we've been set targets for 2021. Feel free to take these. They will all be available on the What Works website. So unless you want to spend time capturing them, you don't need to. They will all be available to you later on. And if anybody wants them sent immediately tomorrow to your email address, I can send the presentation to you. So 2021 is an important year for the UAE. It's 50 years since the formation of the UAE. And there's a national agenda strategy looking towards that date and time. It will also see us being 1 year after Expo 2020. So there will be a lot of focus upon Dubai around that time. I hope you can see those. Can people read them? If you can't, I hope you're familiar with them because they feature within the flap that opens on your inspection handbook. So if you haven't seen them, please pick up the inspection guide and make sure you do. The key aspect that we'll be looking at today are PISA and TIMSS. But the national agenda is much broader than that. There's much more information around it, including reduction in numbers of entry to foundation stage, university, improving quality of Arabic, blah, 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 blah. But the two we'll be looking at today, because of their relevance for mathematics, are PISA and TIMSS. We held a workshop back in June, just to put this in context. It's the first time where over 100 school heads got together to discuss this aspect of the national agenda. Never before had that many heads of school in Dubai arrived in one place. So we were delighted, and it set the ball rolling. We had a subsequent session in September, the first What Works, the launch, and now is the first one focusing on the subject area. So a whistle-stop tour through the context. The feedback we got last time, with the immediacy of 2015, the next round of PISA and TIMSS assessments, and they coincide in 2015, is that we need some quick solutions. And what we're looking at today is, where do we get quick solutions that we can implement immediately, and where do we look strategically in our department level or school level planning to address the national agenda towards 2021. So that's part of the dialogue we'll have. Okay? Are people aware of the schedule, the time cycle for PISA and TIMSS? Just again, so I can get a flavour of the level I need to pitch this up. Do people know the rotation, the scheduling for PISA assessments, for example? Is everybody familiar with, there's a 3-year cycle for PISA? So 2015, next one, 2018, guess what? 2021, that will be too late. by the time we get those results, the agenda will have passed. So we're really looking at 2015, 2018. For TIMSS, it's a 4-year cycle. They coincide in 2015, then 2019. So again, 2023 will be too far. So there's the immediate need for 2015 to meet some of our urgent targets, and then to build on that progressively towards 2018 or 2019 for each of the programs. So, with those in mind, here are a few pointers that came up in feedback from the last time. So we've got the immediate need. I don't need to read them, I won't patronise you because I want us to get into it. So take a few moments to read through that. I could read them out to you, I'm hoping I don't need to. And today's session really is about part 3. We could have as many sessions as we like for school leaders, directors, but it's you guys that are at the nuts and bolts end, the chalk face, if you like. So today's session was deliberately included in the programme to give you some practical ideas or practical discussions. So that's where we'll lead in a moment. Are there any questions so far? Any things I need to elaborate on? Because I'm aware I'm going through them at a rate of knots. Do you know the target? Everybody's familiar with the target audiences for TIMSS and PISA? Helps very much for you. So be wary for TIMSS that if you're a 12-year curriculum, typically an American or similar curriculum, that you're looking at grade 4 and grade 8, whereas in a British or similar 13-year curriculum, you're looking at years 5 and 9. So the TIMSS cohorts, the TIMSS population, are directed by their year of study. However, and there's our current rank 23 of 42, the aspiration is to be among the top 15. Challenge is, if everybody else stays static, we have a job to do anyway. But I imagine that most of these 15 countries will also be looking to increase their rating. So the challenge isn't to get to where they are now, it's to get beyond where they are. PISA, you see there's a wider sample, 65 countries or jurisdictions, and our target with a bigger sample is to be among the top 20. Quite aspirational, we're currently 46. Okay. Mathematicians, we're in the bottom 2/3, or we're in the bottom third, sorry, we're 2/3 down or below. So we're trying to get to top 3. Quite a leap there. Key here, know your populations, particularly for the round that is coming up. It's for a sample of 15-year-olds, and the window will be around about February, March, April of 2015. So have an idea now of your population. Not to fix the sample, not to skew anything in any way, but know who we're working with. Just be well informed. Done this, so I can skip through it, sorry. Everybody's aware of their school targets?
Yes.
Yeah? And you will have received, I think, approximately 2 weeks ago, a similar set of targets for TIMSS? Yeah? Yes, you have? Good. I think key to this is get beyond the numbers. For those of you who are familiar to, I suppose the easiest one are the, gone away now, but the levels for the national curriculum in the UK, where you'll have a rubric of descriptors for a level boundary. Use those to your advantage. So look where your point score currently is, look where your aspirational target is. I would suggest as well pitch beyond that. What they say about reaching for the stars and so forth. But know your targets. Big surprise. Has anybody been inspected already? Does anybody want to share with colleagues the type of dialogue that inspectors have with you over PISA and TIMSS? Cagey? I'm still here trying to share what I know. Maybe we'll have a forum for that in future. But the inspectors will be asking, what are you doing to address the national agenda? I would encourage you, if you don't want to vocalise it across the room, have a chat with people around the table. The spirit of what works is that we put ourselves out there to try and help. Okay, so it's not competition, it's actually collaboration. So if you could just sit around the table, you don't want to vocalize it en masse, just do have a chat with those around you who will be going through a similar process, because I dare say they might help you out in the future with something else. So can we just embrace that spirit for today, please? I'll just let people have a conversation about it. If they need to share that.
What strategies are you adopting to achieve this?
I'm preparing now training for the teachers.
Okay, with the new
Content, they are familiar with the content.
okay.
Something the teachers are able to share with us.
When will they start sharing?
By the beginning of next semester, next autumn term. Doing personal efforts.
On your own?
Just collecting samples and trying to work on our curriculum coordinator is working on preparing a training program for the teachers. And we will proceed with this first.
Will there be enough time for the children to observe all of this? I think the exam will be sometime in March or April.
Based on what the concept has been asked, grade 4 will get eligibility. We have also changed our curriculum, the regular CBSE syllabus to syllabus. We are training our students.
I'll thank you for embracing that spirit. That will be the way the session continues once I conclude. So, just in response to a couple of questions that came from the floor. Where do we find these targets? If you don't know, please, with some urgency, go back to school. You'll have recently received, you'll have the PISA assessment for problem solving, okay, which obviously has a maths context to it. Within there you will find a table of your current school's performance. To the best of my knowledge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not the expert on this, I'm not aware of targets being set in this area. I think it's just where you are, and obviously guidance on what to improve. However, in TIMSS, subject specifically, and PISA, so for example, here's the TIMSS booklet, you will get a guide as to where your current performance is and your targets for, in this case, 2015 and 2019. Back to what I was suggesting about looking beyond the numbers. Very, very useful are these type of charts. I would wager that, if I could, but pretty wrong choice of phrase, the geometry or awareness of shape, space, measure in many schools here would be the least developed. So when it comes to discussions or thoughts around curriculum planning, there's a strong hint that, I say not for inspectors, not for them, but that's the area that many students are underperforming. Use these sets, and then the cognitive domain. So how are their skills in terms of pure knowledge? Well, in our school, I sense in many that would be the strongest. But applying reasoning, the higher skills in the taxonomy, less well developed, understandably, but they would be areas for us to focus upon. So look beyond the scores. These are where you get them. So you have a booklet like this for TIMSS, similar, I think more substantial booklet for PISA, subject-based, and then the third one that we use readily is the recent problem solving one. But look into them with regards penetrating deeper into the data as to what areas, in fact, do we need to look at. Did we get anybody want to feedback on what the inspectors were looking for? We haven't been inspected this year, but in fact, shall I lead it, then you can interject. Modifications are adaptations to the curriculum. We've just touched on that. If you know there's an area of weakness in your curriculum, in maths or science or elsewhere, reading, what have you done about this? What are you planning to do about this in the long term? Okay? Quality of teaching for effective learning. Well, much of the assessment, particularly the PISA ones, they're based around the OECD understanding of contextualized learning. So how contextual is the learning? Is it textbook, repetitive, solving for X? Or is it in context, in meaningful context? And that's what we'll do in a moment, is look at the questions. So when you're looking at the impact on teaching and learning. And then finally, assessment. Are you using these type of materials to guide some of your assessment practices? For me, off the record, I think that's a dangerous one. Let's not teach to the test. Let's think about it as a meaningful learning context, which they are. So that's the discussion I want people to hold today. But would anybody like to add anything? Sorry, I keep going back to you in the short backside. Is there anything in your inspection in particular that was relevant?
To be honest, there was not a great deal on putting us in the hot seat. There wasn't a great deal about that. We demonstrated that we'd reviewed the TIMSS assessment data, but actually it really spoke to what we'd seen in the school as a whole anyway. And we looked at the TIMSS data in relation to the historical data we got through things like the ISA, the IBT. Yeah. But actually using it to chart a path for us was quite difficult. I think what we really did was to look at it as a benchmarking.
One of?
There were some interesting things that came out about through the disaggregated data, say attainment of boys and girls. And you can actually track backwards that cohort and see where they are today, 2 years later, or nearly 3 years later now. But really we found that using assessments like the IBT, the ISA, it's much more diagnostic. You can actually identify with some reliability areas that need greater focus within the content side of the curriculum or the way students are learning.
Can I respond to that? I think that's absolutely spot on and valid. This is one piece of information to use in the wider context of a school. Nonetheless, it's an important one for us. Challenges if schools aren't aware, there's samples of your population. Assessments like ISA allow you to penetrate at individual level. This doesn't. So this generalizes and you don't know how representative the sample actually is of your school unless you backtrack it. So it's very important. I think for that, make sure we're well informed about our sample this year. But when we do want to follow through on the data, that we know who it's representing, because that will give us an indication of how representative it is of our school. But key is that it doesn't dominate our landscape, but it's one part of it. Would anybody like to add anything, or should we move on to the actual workshop for today? Anybody who's had a discussion around this in inspections recently? Because I know schools care about that as well. It's not driving us. No? We're happy to? No? Thank you, sir. Sorry for putting you on the spot. So there's my summary. My summary, I'd say, not driven by the rest, but curriculum modifications to be considered. I think we should be reviewing areas of weakness, but in light of many of the factors. The teaching methods, suitability of the teaching towards these contextualized problems. The assessment methods, or how we measure the progress, again back to one measures of many, and knowing who the sample were. But I think the key word, awareness of the domain. I spoke there about geometry, shape, measure, etc. Commonly a weakness, and possibly in the cognitive areas that application and reasoning are less developed than pure knowledge. So, just focus on there. Useful resources. This is what leads us into now the packs you have on your table. The rest of the session is about tables working together. So based on the fact that this is high stakes and high focus as a country, how can we do our best, in light of the comments we just heard, to build this into our curriculum meaningfully? We have I suppose, the artificial nature that we have to address it for 2015, but then 2018 and 2019 are when we're trying to achieve these targets through genuine student achievement, through genuine progress from where we are at now. So how do we use the context of the questions? And the only, I suppose, suggestion that I have from our schools is to make the type of question part of the dialogue in the collaborative planning process. So we've got humanities teachers working with science and math teachers on where there are links across the curriculum. So possibly population pyramids, or in science, respiration, questions around exertion, and so forth. So have these links between your subject area and other curriculum areas to make sure that mathematics is a tool for life, and science, assessment later, is a tool for life. But I'll hand it back to you guys now, but we will have a 5-minute plenary at the end, if you don't mind, for tables now to discuss what we've seen on the presentation, the context of the national agenda, and the materials you have in front of you. How can you best use those within your curriculum setting? Okay, so I'll hand it over, but I will, towards the close, put it together for any feedback, questions, and observations. Okay, over to you.
David, is it a requirement? Will all schools participate in TIMSS?
That's the intention. There are, due to language concerns, some populations won't be or will be exempted. You're not certain. I can clarify for you. German language schools, French language schools, for example, Japanese school, but most CBSE and other Indian curriculum schools, British, US, Arabic schools, including ministry schools, so they will all be participating. Arabic schools do it through the medium of Arabic. So, and I heard something about a sample. It is typically you send off the details of all your students in the particular cohort, whether they be 15 years of age for PISA or in the certain year groups for TIMSS. Then KHDA, I'm not sure if it's with an external agency, arrive at the sample. But you can challenge students, participation if you think there is a particular reason to do so. So if they have particular needs, profound needs, SEN, or significant language acquisition needs, then they can be exempt. You have to. That's not the school's decision. You have to then contact KHDA around that. But it's interesting, the issue about sampling. Across Dubai-wide, the sample seems to be fairly representative, but that's not the case in all schools. You might have I was speaking to one school last year where the highest achieving boy within their sample, something like 26th on the school ranking. So the boys were skewed to the negative because the top four within the sample at random was a medium performer, if you like, in some respects. So just be mindful of your sample as well, because if that's representing your school, and if it is something that becomes higher stakes, make sure you know the population that it's represented.
Do you have any idea what is the criteria for selection of the sample?
Random. That's all I know. It's meant to be random.
And
do it through age distribution, or whether it's just a list, or if there's a random number generator, like I was doing.
And when will this selection be made?
When will the sorry? When will the selection be made?
They will contact you in the new calendar year, typically around February, I would imagine.
Okay.
Because the assessments are scheduled for a window in March and April.
Okay.
So they'd like to have the data in before that. Because there's also some supporting data they collect, sometimes around aptitudes and so forth. So they need also survey generation.
Okay.
How do you involve parents in this whole process? In preparing? Just like you do it as a school?
I communicate to them in the same ways we would with all of the matters in school. Maybe this time we will remind them that it is part of the UAE national agenda, not just a test which has been imposed upon us to raise the profile, but typically it will be part of my normal schedule of communications.
What extra measures you have taken?
Exactly what I said there. I don't have the right answer, but we've modified the curriculum, so we looked at, in mathematics, we could see blatantly, clearly, geometry, shape, space and measure were weaker. Aspects of cross-curricular planning, where we've got our geography department, when they come across population graphs, pyramids, what they work with the maths department on aspects like that, just to make sure there's a common understanding. In science, we saw that from our curriculum. I know that science isn't applicable here, but it's another example that when we're looking at classifications, it wasn't well covered in our curriculum as an IB school in advance of the time that it was being delivered. So we reviewed the placement of certain aspects of the course, but nothing deliberate. We're not teaching to the test. We're just looking at. Neither do we want to shoot ourselves in the foot. So if there's something that's covered, but it's covered later, will it make sense for us to amend the curriculum? So the key one for me would be if you've got geometry right, and if you've got it contextualized, if you've got it in problems which are away from the textbook, then you will have been doing your job. So if you make the questions, look at the questions that are here, none of them particularly solve for X. They're all pretty much a real life problem or real life content. If you build that into your curriculum, into your math teaching or your science teaching, and it crosses into other subject areas, and then becomes a natural part of collaboration across subject areas, then you've done your job. And if you read what the OECD, what they want from this, I was at a conference recently where the head of OECD was presenting, that's what they're looking at. They're not looking purely at knowledge disciplines, which is why they brought problem solving in. They're looking at there's scope for collaborative problem solving in the future. They will assess students on collaboration, not just on individualized problem solving. So it's going more towards the skills. Students have heard about 21st century skills. It's moving more towards those sort of skills rather than just regurgitating textbook content. So I'd say if you take that little bit away, context, collaboration, and review your curriculum, you've done plenty to start with. And then see where it takes you. So, but I'm not here to give you the answers. That's what we've done. So it's one example. Might not work. We might have to go back to the drawing board.
You started addressing this year only? Or?
It's always been part of our agenda. We've been since 2009, 2012, so we've had the data coming in. But I think the focus has been raised this year by the fact that it's part of the UAE's wider national agenda. I was saying to a colleague at the back, it's very important that it's one part of what we do. So we really don't teach to this test. Really don't do that. Use it as a context for learning. Use it as meaningful examples that build into your existing curriculum. That's what I suggest. We're lucky, I suppose. I'm teaching an IB curriculum school. Our curriculum is very much inquiry-based and contextualised. So the curriculum context is, or can present different challenges as well. We're very mindful of that. So unfortunately, I looked at our problem-solving skills, and they're off the scale. And that's just because of the curriculum and the type of students we have. So we will all face different challenges. And I think it's up to each school not to take my solution away. So this is not what might work for us. Do we have any comments or observations? I honestly don't know how valuable it will have been for you. I think you seemed very well informed when you arrived. But it's something I've been asked to do, which is to continue raising the profile of this. So no doubt as a mathematician and a physicist, I'll be rolled out again for the science, what works. But math is my passion, so I hope when you look at and I enjoy solve for X, by the way. I think there's something worthwhile in logic and algebra. But for this, let's look at the context, the appropriateness of maths for real life, in real life learning. But carry on your discussions. I think it's useful for you guys to at least to make links with one another. I've got a job to do to download these documents for another 5 or 6 people. So, but if you do feel you've had enough, you want to stretch your legs, have some time to walk around or just have a chat. So I hope some of it was worthwhile. Just getting the examples if you didn't have them already. Okay, thank you.
It is